The Discipline is Essential in the Spiritual Aspirant, Part 12, Sri Muruganar, translated and presented by Robert Butler.
Duvidamala Chundaswarupama Ullat Avridalutra Unne Duvidamala Chundaswarupama Ullat Avridalutra Unne Aham Kilarmeyanbar Duvidame Paul பிறர்க்கு தோன்றத் தொழுதேன் விவிதமாய் என்னை விராது பெறாய் துவிதமலா சுந்த ஸ்வரூபமா உள்ளத்தவிர்தல் உற்ற உன்னை அகம் கிளர்மை என்பால் துவிதமே போல் பிறர்க்கு தோன்றத் தொழுதேன் விவிதமாய் என்னை வெறாது பொறாய் விவிதமாய் என்னை வெறாது பொறாய்.
As my own self is shown within the heart, beyond duality, and I, with true love flaring up, worship thee in many forms, which in others' eyes as dualism appeared to be. So forgive me, and do not in disgust abandon me. That's a prayer by Sri Muruganar from Sri Guru Ramana Prasadam, verse 393. So we will get started today with neris number 36. And we're making a minor change in our presentation, so we'll go by topics going forward. So the first topic today is on minimalism. Go ahead, please, Anand.
உண்பது நாழி உடுப்பது நான்கு முழம் இதனை கோ இவ்வுலகத்தில் இவ்வளவு பாடு உண்பது நாழி உடுப்பது நான்கு முழம் இத்தனைக்கோ இவ்வுலகத்தில் இவ்வளவு பாடு.
Robert.
A measure of rice to eat and 4 cubits of cloth to wear is all we need.
What's he trying to say, Robert?
Basically that if we take more than we need in life, then along with what we take all the trouble that comes with it. So we should endeavor to only use and consume what we need, whether it be in food and clothing or people's time or in any sphere of life. We should, before we take any action, we should always refer to ourselves and say, do we need this? And if not, we just let it go.
Right.
We have an example we can read later on when we read the verse. But this is a quotation from Obeya, and we have a verse to show, don't we?
Right. So I think this is he's quoting a portion of Obeya's verse here, and we'll get
verse 28 of Nalvadi.
Yeah, Obeya Nalvali, right. Girija, you want to go ahead and read this, please?
Sorry. உண்பது நாழி உடுப்பது 4 முழம் 80 கோடி நினைந்து எண்ணுவன் கண் புதைந்த மாந்தர் குடி வாழ்க்கை மண்ணின் கலம் போல சாந்துணையும் சஞ்சலமே தான்.
So a measure of grain to eat and 4 cubits of cloth to wear are all a man needs. Yet his thoughts multiply 1 billion-fold. Living life blindly, his domestic life, as fragile as a clay pot, he suffers till the day he dies. Do you want to expand on that, Robert?
Yeah, well, I wrote a few notes. Life is less simple now than it was in the days of OBR. We seem to need so many things like house, car, TV, computer, phone, washing machine, and so on. However, there are strategies we can adopt to help us. When deciding if we need something, if we remain consciously self-attentive when we make the decision, that will enable us to choose the correct course of action, since the decision will not come from the perspective of our individual ego. And I found this example, which I've always loved, from Bhagavan's life, which exemplifies the sort of attitude we may not have, but we can aim for. In the case of the jnani, because he has no ego-driven desires and impulses at all, in fact, there's no he, there's just him, he's just the self. He finds that whatever he needs in whatever situation comes to him quite naturally through the power of the self. Sri Ramana gives the following example, but before I give the example, of course, we're not Bhagavan, but we all find at times in our life when we'll all know moments when we've given up on something that we didn't really need and that we generously let it go. We found that we got something much better, a bit like the Rolling Stones. You can't always get what you want, but sometimes you find you get what you need. Some of these pop songs have meaningful lyrics. Anyway, the example from Bhagavan is as follows. When I was staying in Pasyaman temple, he stayed there when the plague was on because he couldn't stay within the town boundary because of the plague regulations, so they moved to Pasyaman. My loincloth got torn. I never made any request to anybody, so I had to stitch it myself. For a needle, I used a thorn from a cactus plant. I made a slit at the end which gripped a thread that I had removed from my loincloth. After the repairs were finished, I was able to wear it for another 2 months. During the same period, my towel had so many holes it looked like a net. One day, a shepherd, after seeing the towel, tried to ridicule me by saying, "Swami, the provincial governor wants this towel." After washing and drying the towel, I used to wrap it around my hands so that no one could see what state it was in. Somehow, those who were with me came to know about it and brought 3 sets of new loincloths and towels. They took away my old towel and made me exchange my loincloth for a new one. If you remain in the don't want state, everything will come to you. That is why both likes and dislikes are not wanted. And obviously the way to achieve something similar to this state is to practice Bhagavan's method of self-attention.
Exactly, right. The more we practice, the more minimalism will sink in.
Yeah, we couldn't think of a good word for it. It's not really minimalism, it's kind of a movement in art, but it's...
Well, minimalism to phenomenal things.
Yeah. Some people don't understand what we mean.
You're right. So there are a couple of other neris that support this, Muruganar's own neris. So we'll just look at those. Anand, please.
இக்கன வாழ்க்கை செல்வ பெருக்கம்.
Yeah. Which means a thrifty lifestyle will yield great riches. So what is the riches he's referring to here, Robert?
Riches is the internal peace that you find when you give up some useless desire for some external object, and you dwell in your own being and see that all the bliss that you find in these objects is actually in your own self.
Right.
And the pleasures and you seem to find in external objects are just a reflection of your own nature. So why not just stay with that nature and just be? And then whatever comes will come in the natural course of events, but it won't disturb your inner peace.
Right. And then the next neri, Anand.
போதுமென்ற மனமே பொன் செய்யும் மருந்து.
Which means a contented mind is a golden panacea. Do you want to elaborate on that, Robert?
Well, just the same. It's
nothing
to add there, really. It's just underlining the same
point. Underlying principle is the same, yeah. So good. So I wanted to see if anyone has any comments on this concept here, which Muruganar was trying to convey in 3 of his disciplines or neris. Any personal reflections as you're progressing, the spiritual practice, self-attention, how you're able to deal with your pull to material things? It's getting better, and just opening it up. If anyone wants to share their personal insights. Okay. If not, let's just go to the next topic, which is on considerate behavior. In this neri, Muruganar addresses how we should behave with others, and also how, if others are behaving badly to us, how we respond. So, Neri 37, Anand, please.
ஒருவரையும் உல்லங்கனமாக தூக்கி எறிந்து துச்சமாக பேசாதே, துள்ளின மாடு பொதி சுமக்கும். ஒருவரையும் உல்லங்கனமாக தூக்கி எறிந்து துச்சமாக பேசாதே, துள்ளின மாடு பொதி சுமக்கும்.
Robert.
Do not speak harshly to, ignore, and reject anyone. An unruly bullock will come to bear a greater burden. That is, will not escape punishment. This is a Tamil proverb.
What can you expand on that? So, what does that mean? What does that mean? An unruly bullock will not bear a greater burden.
Yes. It just simply means that the person that speaks harshly to you will create his own karma, which will come back on him, and his punishment will be harder than any that you could give him, because his own karma will punish him in return. Right. In the same way that if the bullock misbehaves because you put 2 bales of straw on his cart, then you'll get angry with him and give him 5 bales to pull.
Right. There's a couple of other neris that support this. Neri 39. Go ahead, Anand.
பிறனை இகழ்வான் தன்னை இகழ்வான். பிறனை இகழ்வான் தன்னை இகழ்வான்.
Robert, please.
He who reviles another reviles himself.
And why is that?
That is because we're all the self.
Right.
In our true nature, we're the self. So anything negative that we say will reflect back upon about anybody else will really reflect back upon us in the same way. So like a mirror. So we can't get away with insulting another person, because it will always come back.
Right. And then there's another longer neri which supports this point from Muruganar, Neri 41. Go ahead, please, Anand.
எவரேனும் தன்னை இகழ்ந்து தூற்றின் அதற்கேதுவும் எளிதில் தானாக அறியலாகாததுமான தன் குற்றத்தை தான் அறிந்து சீர்திருத்திக் கொள்ள தனக்கு அவகாசம் அளித்ததற்காக அவர்பால் நன்றி பாராட்டும் கருத்துடையனாதல் அன்றே நேர்மாறாக அக்குற்றத்தின் பிடிவாதம் செய்து அழுந்தலும் அவரை வெறுத்து பழித்தலும் தனக்கு விரைவில் வரக்கடவதாய கேட்டுக்கு அவற்றை முன் அறிகுறிகளாக அறிஞன் அறியக் கடவன்.
The whole thing is just one sentence. Is that right?
It's a brilliantly constructed Tamil sentence. Very much in the Muruganar style. It's
right.
Very elegant, very charming. Once you understand it, it's a piece of poetry in itself, to be honest.
Yeah, exactly.
It's so profound.
Yeah.
So to put it in such a fashion itself is very, very beautiful. I mean,
right.
Yeah.
Yes, it's one of the great jewels of this little book, actually.
Right.
Should I read it?
Yeah, go ahead, please.
Okay. Should anyone scorn you and spread slander about you, your attitude should be one of gratitude towards them for giving you the opportunity of recognizing and correcting some fault that you might otherwise not easily have noticed yourself. The wise will be aware that if, conversely, you cling stubbornly to that fault and hate and disparage that person, these are sure indications of the ruin that is destined soon to overtake you. Very doom-laden sort of ending, but it's very Muruganar, isn't it? That.
Yeah.
But this is a very deep thing, because we often hear about do-gooders and people like that. They go to a tribe in the jungle and take Christianity, and they all get the flu and they all die. Even the best intentioned of our own actions can have adverse effects. So we can't judge what people are going to think. So if we notice that even the good things we're doing are producing an adverse effect, say if you favor one member of the family over the other and the other, you soon notice that the result of all this is actually in yourself. So when the person gets angry with you, you say to yourself, there must be something in what I've done or said which has caused this. And then through self-attention, you can come to find the place where this resolves and the tension and the conflict disappears. So it's a very, very deep statement. I'm sure many people will have thoughts on that one.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes we get too sensitive when people say something, and instead of looking at it as somebody that's really helping you.
Yeah.
And then, as you mentioned, self-attention always helps in this too. I mean, in responding, being calm and responding to constructive criticisms and making changes in how you handle things. That I will open it up for discussion on this topic, which is on dealing with others. And if anyone has a comment on the previous topic, too, on minimalism, please go ahead and share it.
Yeah.
Can I make a comment?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, please go ahead.
Yeah, I am reminded just now of a song written by a famous Carnatic music composer, Purandara Dasa from Karnataka. He says, Nindagar irabeku. You need people who slander you.
Yeah.
Because they eat all your papas, and those who praise you, on the other hand, will be eating away all the good things that you had accumulated as good action. If you want to get rid of all your previous karmas, you actually do need people who slander you.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, particularly those who will constructively criticize you, we need them. We really
want to clean
need
a very dirty pot, you need a scrubber, something that's very strong that rub the charcoal off the inside of the pot, not a soft cloth.
Right. Anyone else wants to share their comments?
Sure. I'd like to read parts of something that I treasure. It's called 8 Verses for Training the Mind by Geshe Langri Tangpa. This is from Tibetan Buddhism.
Mm-hmm.
It says, by thinking of all sentient beings as even better than the wish-granting gem for accomplishing the highest aim, may I always consider them precious. May I examine my mind? No, let me see where they say, when I see beings of a negative disposition or those oppressed by negativity or pain, may I, as if finding a treasure, consider them precious, for they are rarely met. Whenever others, due to their jealousy, revile and treat me in unjust ways, may I accept this defeat myself and offer the victory to others.
Yes.
Of course, this is, it's to cultivate humility and compassion towards all sentient beings, which is part of Buddhist thoughts.
Right. Anyone else? Murthy, did you have any comment?
Yeah, Namo Ramanaya.
Namo
This trait needs a lot of honesty towards oneself. See, many a times we get carried away as to what is right and what is wrong. Unfortunately, life is not always black or white, right? There's a lot of gray in between. So it could be like one way of doing something and another way of doing something. It need not be, one is correct and one is wrong. And we stick to our opinions all the time, right? So here, basically, the advice is, the more criticism you get, more thankful you should be. Because somebody is out there spending time to point out your faults. And sometimes if they are not faults, and if you are honest, and you know you are honest, if it's not a fault, and you know that criticism is coming out of a negative mindset, you should perhaps pray for them, because they are speaking from ignorance. And, they are too carried away by the material, state. So, God, please help them transcend their ignorance. That could be an approach which helps. But for everything, I feel that honesty is essential, and that too, a brutal honesty towards oneself. Thank you.
Thank you. That's very well said. Just be true to yourself. Anuma, you want to go ahead? That's you, right? Okay. Anyone else? Let's share the comments. Some thoughts.
Bhagavan has said when somebody is insulting us, they're really insulting our ego, and ego is our enemy. So who is being mean to us or bad to us is really doing us a favor, because we want to kill the ego.
So Shanti says, when Bhagavan apparently said one time that somebody is insulting us, they're actually insulting our ego, which is because we're basically in the business of trying to insult the ego and kill it anyway. So, which is actually a good thing. So don't get too worked up, if somebody is insulting your ego. We want to insult the ego.
Very rightly said. Bhagavan, I think, if I remember correct, Bhagavan said, ego is your enemy and you're trying to get rid of the ego.
Right.
So enemy's enemy is your friend. So if
Exactly.
somebody is hurting your ego, they're actually your friend.
Yeah, exactly.
When somebody was very insulted and very angry, it seems Bhagavan caught hold of that person by shoulder and took them off the kitchen and said, hey, this is the right time for you to do self-introspection, because your ego is rising very, very explicitly and very clearly. Catch hold of it and see who's behind it. Something to that effect. So even that anger turned out to be a good opportunity for self-investigation.
Exactly, right. Okay. So yeah, these are very practical and also powerful, and you can actually apply these. That's one of the, the beauty of this work, Muruganar's neris is they're very practical, and then you can just take a lot of these tips, and it may seem as though it's common sense, but it's good for us to be reminded with, and putting it in context of, looking at it through the prism of self-attention. And all of this gets easier the more and more we practice self-attention.
May I, if you don't mind, if there is time, may I go back a little bit and mention a few things about minimalism?
Yeah, sure. Go ahead. Yeah. Please.
We recently relocated to India. Anand sir knows this. After 30 years of living in the United States, myself and my wife wanted to relocate back to India and live here long term. And we just recently came back and still going through some jet lag and all that. Our 2-bedroom apartment is not fully furnished. Initially last year during COVID, we took it as a temporary thing. Now it turned out to be a not so temporary residence. So we don't have much furniture here. So the most frequent question we get asked by family and friends here is, when are you getting your car? When are you getting your TV? Myself and my wife really don't see a need for a TV or a car, because as you know, Chennai and India is well endowed with a lot of public transportation. You don't really need to drive anything at all to get from one place to another place. So I really don't feel like learning driving here after several years of not driving in India. But people keep asking this. So the world has a powerful tendency to allure you and keep you more and more immersed in materialistic things. Whether it is essential or non-essential, doesn't matter. There's a norm, there is a cultural state, there is a social state. So all that is given as a reason. And oh, you're not going to get a car? Really? No TV? That's crazy. So you get this compulsion sometimes to satisfy people around you, and that's a very hard thing to do sometimes. So I just wanted to mention that when minimalism was a topic.
Right. So we don't want to be keeping up with the Jonases all the time. And that is important. I saw a movie recently to that effect. I forgot the name of it. If it comes to my mind, I'll share it with you all. Probably a must-watch movie. How environment constantly pushes us to keep on spending, and then we get into that rat race, trying to keep up with the other guy, and it's just a never-ending thing. And then we'll never have time. You never have time for spiritual pursuit. Never have time for self-attention. That's what people always say. Well, there's no time. How are you doing all this satsang? There's no time. It's like, well, that is actually time. There's plenty of time. You just have to make it. It is everywhere. It's all over the place. We just have to make it, and we have to. Go ahead.
Yeah, that's why I feel that this path is kind of a double-edged sword. Once you get into it and you stick to it for some time, you feel that you could be labeled as a fool in this world. And you should be okay with that. In other words, you should be willing to take a loss. Like someone read that saying from the Buddhist in the poem. You should be willing and happy to take a failure or a loss or a label like you're a loser. Willingly, you should be able to take that if you want to stick to this. And that's not easy. That's not easy unless you are very sincere and very honest to yourself and very committed to Bhagavan's teaching and try to follow it. Win or lose, I'm going to follow it. That kind of approach and attitude, once it sets in, these things really do not matter. Even if the world considers me a fool, how does it matter? I'm progressing as far as what is ultimately required. That's the feeling one gets. And I feel that is something the practitioner feels as they immerse more and more in Bhagavan's teaching.
Right. Thank you. So now let's, I think Anand had a comment, and we'll conclude after Anand's comment. Go ahead, Anand, please.
Just a quick point.
Sure.
When I saw the title as minimalism, I was immediately reminded of Murthy and his wife, giving up everything and going. But then I thought that would be too much of a personal thing to bring up here, especially in front of him. So I kept quiet. So it's good that he opened up, and he sets an example for many of the ardent those who really want to be ardent devotees. They with all no mukhas to their flattery. I mean, with all due respect, they are very good examples. And we know of another family from California. They both relinquished their job just like that overnight, and then went, and they are living so peacefully. So I am tempted, but we are so anyway. At least they are good examples, inspirations.
Yeah, it's a bold decision we have to make, and it's surprising that these days actually some young individuals are making this decision. It is actually coming up as a concept in itself, and it just basically stepping back and towards that minimalism, towards things material. So that way you have more, you can allocate more on your, for your spiritual endeavors, pursuit. Thank you all.
There is one raised hand by Lakeness Turtles.
Yeah, I think that's Anuma. I checked with her. Do you have any comment, Anuma?
I don't think it's important now. Actually, I wanted to say about, if I have your permission, I wanted to say that I had read as a child, if somebody beats on your, gives you a slap on your face on one cheek, show the other cheek.
Yeah.
Okay, I used to wonder, how is it possible? My spontaneous reaction is, I'll give back one. Now, I understand the meaning for that.
Right.
So, unnecessarily, if somebody has given you some pain, okay, then we should be grateful to them and ask them to continue with it, because they are testing our patience, how matured we are. So, for giving us a chance, we should be grateful to them for trying our own steps.
Sorry. Yeah. That's a very good point. Very well said. Yeah. Good. You're welcome. Thank you. So with that, we'll conclude today's session.